What is up, y'all? We are back again with a topic that seems to be something that a lot of people ask us about.
Yeah, and I guess we never really touched on it before.
We do, but we always touch on it, but it's never anything specific. So today we kind of have a special topic. It's 5 years after leaving a cult, what we believe now.
All right, we'll just get into it.
I think first, disclaimer, we're not atheists, but I understand the mentality of atheists, okay?
Yeah.
Completely get it. Anyways, so let's start, with the Bible. I think we're just going to go through different topics and our viewpoints on it.
All right, let's do it like that.
Okay, so the Bible, what do we think about the Bible?
Well,
I'm going to say, what do you think? Because I think we have different thoughts on it too, kind of.
Yeah, all right, so I started to backtrack and question everything. Once I left a cult, some people will rush and run to another cult just for safety, just so they can find a belonging to something. And I learned to be comfortable with not having all the answers. Because that's why I noticed a pattern in religion. Everybody claims to have all the answers, even if there's no proof behind it. And I started to realize, dang, there's 4,000 plus religions. And inside of the 4,000 plus, inside Christianity, there's 40,000 different types of Christians. And each religion claims that they right, and all the other thousands are wrong.
Right.
And so I'm starting to see a pattern, and even with the Bible, you were taught that this is the first thing out. This was the brand new everything. And once you start looking at history, it's like, well, dang, this is kind of new. And there was stuff around way before that. And you just see a pattern of everybody claims to have all the answers, and most of them charge money for these answers. Or there's a catch to it, all right, you got to follow these rules, but if you don't, you got to face these consequences. And it kind of scares people into following the tradition or the beliefs of it. So I look at it as a lot of these things don't make sense. And the way that especially Christianity was spread, there were religions already around, or a spirituality that was around. And to get people to get away from that, it took violence. They had to unalive people to force them to accept Christianity. And it's man, hold on. And even things in the Bible, you got good things, but then you got other stuff that don't make sense in it. And I wasn't afraid to question that. So I look at the Bible just like every other religion. There's some knowledge in it that came from something else, but it's also man-made and twisted with a lot of other things that debunks it.
Okay, I actually really like that viewpoint, and I agree with it, because I think that there was something prior to the Bible, and there was special scrolls, and I have said this multiple times, but I think if all religions would come together, they would see that so many similarities between their religion. And I think that every religion kind of holds a piece of the puzzle on what is right. But there's this argument all the time about who is right and why they're right, and I have chosen to release myself from that. I may not be right. I might be right. And I'm okay with either one here, Yeah,
and we believe in everybody is on their own journey. It's not meant for everybody to be a part of the same religion. You got to do what works for you, but don't push everybody else to accept what you are a part of.
Yes, exactly. Even with us, we encourage everybody to go and do their own research on everything, you don't have to just follow what another person is saying because you feel like they did more research than you did. You have the same ability. You can go and research things yourself as well. Point blank, period.
I like how you put it that way. That's true. I like how JT will always say this, referring to Watchtower, about put everything on the timeline. And when I was deconstructing from religion as a whole, I just put things on the timeline. And what I understood, because what woke me up was Black history, and how that in Christianity didn't really align. It actually went against everything that we believed in. So I started to question, all right, so before slavery, what were some of our beliefs? And you see, well, wait a minute, there were beliefs around before this, but everything that we believed in became evil, demonic, and you need to accept this. That also tells you to let us enslave you, and you have to forgive us. So I put that on the timeline, all right, so we've been on this earth. If you just Google it, it'll tell you over 200,000 years, even though it's longer than that. And then I turned around and looked up how old is Christianity. It was nowhere near 200,000 years. So I'm like, all right, so I'm putting this on the timeline. What was going on before this got here?
Yeah.
And literally all the things that was there are what's called demonic and evil and what they always scare you from looking into. So of course, I don't have to accept it just by reading it. I'm allowed to do my research, and I start seeing a lot of things that start adding up and clicking. And it's like, well, no wonder they don't want us to learn none of this stuff.
Most definitely.
This is more beneficial than what we've been practicing all these years and not getting the results in.
Yeah, that's the truth. And I feel like that kind of is a segue into the next topic, which is, what do we believe about Jesus?
You want to start?
I'll start because I kind of know your thoughts on it. And this is how I feel about Jesus. We go back and forth because he doesn't believe Jesus was a real person, right? Okay, so me, even if Jesus was a real person and he was walking this earth, I just view him as somebody that held a lot of different standards, you know what I mean? Like held high morality, like everything that Jesus represents, I think is a good thing. It's not bad for people to try to base their life off of wanting to be like how this person is shown to be, you know, like the humility and having honor, having respect, treating everybody equal. Like what he stands for is a beautiful thing. So if you want to follow that, why not? That's how I view Jesus.
No.
But I don't view him any different than anybody else who was honorable and, you know, like
do you feel like
Buddhists and things.
This was a person that God impregnated a virgin with?
I don't know. I don't care to have the answer to it either, to be honest with you. For me, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like he was just do I think that he was God in human form? No, I don't. Like, as him being like the only God. But if I view him as I view my beliefs, which I believe all of us have God in us, and we are all parts of God, and that's why people talk about like Christ consciousness,
right?
Is just becoming like more conscious, more aware, and that's how I view him to be. Like maybe a person that was, you know, had higher consciousness and was aware. That's how I view Jesus. Okay.
I look at it as I started to read the Bible with an open mind. And because think about it, beforehand it's passed down and as everything in here is right, you need to accept it. And I start looking at it as if somebody told me to prove this, could I prove it? And I noticed a lot of these things that took place is stuff that don't take place now. And it's all like, well, this doesn't happen now, but it used to because the book says so. Like some people speaking from the sky in these loud voices, or like a flood taking over the whole earth and only one family surviving and being able to grab 2 mosquitoes, 2 crickets, 2 snakes, 2 venomous snakes, 2 gorillas, 2 apes, 2 polar bears from way over here, 2 kangaroos from way over there, and sticking it on a boat and talking donkeys and snakes talking out the bush. And it's just like, I done seen enough fairy tale movies and read enough Dr. Seuss books to be able to realize, like, come on now. And so I started to question a lot of these things. And if Jesus was the greatest human to ever touch the earth, where's the proof? Besides, you know, this book saying you got to accept it, and people that wasn't there saying, I heard this about him, I'm writing it in the book, accepted this facts. I'm like, he was a carpenter. Where's something that we can have in the museum like Jesus built this? It don't look nothing like nothing else. Or Jesus left some garments behind. Like, there's no physical proof of this Jesus. And then I learned that one of the first slave ships was called Jesus. So it was just so many things I started learning and realized a lot of this stuff was like, it's fairy tale stuff.
Okay, so what do you think about, what's that rock that's in like Italy? Where they said that Jesus sat there? What about that? You don't believe it?
Who said he sat there?
Right, but who said he didn't? You know what I mean? I feel like we weren't there, so we just...
And this is a part of like a lot of this transition during slavery, because you got a family. If you take the grandmother away, take the mom, the dad, and move everybody separately, and then you got the kids left, you can tell the kids anything.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of indoctrination took place, especially during that time. A lot of people to this day still feel like we never traveled nowhere until somebody grabbed us off a boat and brought us to the States.
Right.
Not realizing we had traveled the whole globe. There's statues with thick lips and big noses all over the world. Long before anybody was coming and try to grab people on boats.
Yeah.
And so just that it's easy to twist things around and say, you know, this is the religion you got to follow. And all that other stuff is demonic. You don't know nothing about it because you're a kid, not knowing your grandparents live by this, or your grandparents' generations have already been in this country.
Yeah.
And that all falls into the same categories of being able to push a religion on people. What I always ask is, how is this benefiting us today by following this religion stuff? And people can make excuses, but I go, all right, if this is the basis in this church, why is it that they were able to bomb churches with people in it while they was praying and worshiping to Jesus? Like, where is this Jesus at? And people will go, oh, it's because free will. Like, it's never a direct answer on the protection of Jesus for real.
Okay, so those are our thoughts on Jesus. And next, I guess we could just talk about how we feel about God, because that kind of goes, like, people believe Jesus is God. I don't have that belief. I believe God to be, I feel like I really had to change what my definition of God was, because all growing up, like, we learned that God was omnibenevolent, he was omnipresent, he was omniscient, he was all these things. He was everywhere at all times, he was all things good, he was all powerful. And the truth is, I felt like all three of those things couldn't coincide together.
Explain.
Like, how can you be all powerful and all good? And then I look at the situation of the world today and I'm like, well, all things out here are not good, so why not use your powers if you're all powerful to fix this? Even dating back to, like, Adam and Eve. If you're omnipresent, so you know everything that's going to happen, that will happen, and you're all places at all times, and you're also all good and all powerful, why even make humanity go through this? Why even make... And the whole thought of, like, the tree at the beginning, this is the don't eat off of this tree that presents the knowledge of good and evil. That is implying that prior to that, Adam and Eve didn't have the knowledge of good and evil. So that's like setting somebody up for failure. So if they already don't have the knowledge of evil, then you can't expect them to know what it is that they're getting themselves into. So, and then it's just like, why did you create her? Like, creator, why did you create her? And then the term creator, create her. Like, was this all meant to happen?
Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel.
Stop?
Yeah, and when does it stop? And I think we touched on this on another video, but, like, if Armageddon and everything were to be real, how is it that humanity is not doomed to repeat the same exact process? Because these were two perfect people
forever ago,
right? And new scrolls are going to be open. Okay, this is all based on Jehovah's Witness logic, right? So new scrolls are going to be open. So are these new scrolls going to have new sets of rules? Right. And is there going to be another tree that you can't eat off of? And now there's millions of perfect people. That lowers the chances of being able to do this thing right. So then it's all going to happen all over again. So I've changed my belief of what God means. And to me now, God means higher consciousness. It means all things and everything. I believe that evil and good are supposed to kind of
coexist.
Yeah. Like, there's always this polarity in the world. There's good and bad. There's dark and light. There's, hot and cold. Like, all of these things are the same, just on a spectrum of extremes. Okay, here's the extremes. So I believe God to be balance and harmony between all of these polarities.
That's true. And then the thing about polarities is one thing, just depending on how you look at it. Like hot and cold, the Kabbalion gave an example of a thermostat.
Yeah, shout out to our subscriber who had us get that.
Yeah, salute.
Dope book.
It talks about temperature is one thing, hot and cold. You just determining where at on this thermostat that it transitions, but it's still temperature, the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And everything is all one. So like with the God thing, we were given the definition of it's a man in the sky that's very strict. And this man told somebody to write a book with all these rules in it.
Right.
And so you were always given this idea, but that's just from one religion. there are thousands of religions with different gods, but every religion doesn't really take time to look at everybody's gods, which is part of the divine conquer. You start to notice everybody's talking about the same thing, a higher power, just depending on what you want to call it. And you see that everything in life is connected as one. That's the water. You can't have one thing and not the other thing. You need the sun. If you get rid of the sun, things fall apart. You need the ocean. We don't have the ocean. We need air. We need plants. You see that everything is connected, down to bugs and animals and people. Everything is God. We are all God. We are just experiencing human life in God form, because energy can't be created nor destroyed. So once you die, you are still in another plane of life. That's it. And you cannot destroy that. So everything is literally connected. We all come from the universe. If you want to call, and the thing is, we put a gender on God because the Bible is a man-made thing. So it's from a man's perspective of a jealous God. He don't get his way. He gonna wipe out a whole nation and flood the earth. Like, that's human stuff. Almighty creator doesn't need to be jealous of who.
And doesn't have to practice those things because he knows what's going to happen anyway. So things would just come into fruition how they're supposed to work, you know? True. I think just in this world now, we're just off balance and off harmony. But when there's a balance and harmony to, you know, good, because sometimes things that are considered evil are necessary, you know what I mean, for survival, for survival of humans, you know, like back in the day when tribes were attacking each other, killing was a survival mechanism to allow the humanity to keep on going. Right. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes these things are necessary, like how they would kill animals in order to, how they would unalive animals to, you know, be able to eat. Like, all these things can be considered like evil acts, but it was necessary at that time for survival.
It's all balance.
Yeah. And I feel like this kind of goes into the whole Satan thing, and I feel the same way about that. I know it's so taboo to talk about because it's like we've all been indoctrinated to like not talk about this. But this is how I feel. I feel like Satan and God are two sides of the same coin. So like two different energies, but manifesting as one.
True.
That's just how I feel, because even if you take it back, God created this angel, Satan, and he had the free will to go and do whatever it is that he wanted. But you knew what he was going to do.
And then this is what I don't like about the teachings of the Bible. It says that if heaven is perfect, how was this able to occur up in heaven, this war?
Exactly.
And the war to where you remove the devil and send him to earth with your children. Like, when would you take a monster and put him amongst your children you created?
Yeah.
And just sit back and watch destruction happen? Satan gives a lot of religious people an excuse to do what they want to do and shift the blame. Oh, the devil made me do it. Oh, the demons had... No, that was you. A lot of people, you are the devil. You made those bad choices, or you choose to do ABC because that's your desire. You want to do these things, and instead of just taking control and saying, you know what, I was tempted because this is something I'm attracted to, or I like to gamble, or ABC. No, it was the devil. No. There's... my whole thing with this devil thing, the best way to control people is through fear. Yeah. Especially if it's something you can't see. Now you create this devil. You create these scenarios of something is making me do something. Nah, it's all you. It's all in your imagination. And just think about religion or Christianity with no devil teaching. Yeah. How you gonna get people to do what you need them to do if it's no hell? Yeah. If it wasn't no hell, a lot of people wouldn't want to be no Christian. Well, sure, it's like you can choose to be a religious person or not. It's cool, you got free will, but you still gonna go to heaven. Well, people gonna be like, well, dang, what I'm about to pay all my money for and keep doing this every week if I ain't got nothing to worry about. But when you throw the devil in there, if you don't do this, the devil gonna get you. You're gonna burn in hell. Now you can get people in line because they have something to fear. But it's like, if bad things always happen and you have God and the devil, where's the protection at?
Yeah. You know what? I think you bring up such a good point about, because most of the Christian groups, they're always talking about, oh, the devil tempted me and the devil this, the devil that. And it is used as an excuse when in reality, no, you lacked awareness in that moment. You chose to do this, ABC. You know what I mean? Yeah. And a lot of times it comes down to lacking the awareness, which is why I think that people have labeled the consciousness like having the Christ consciousness, because you're able to bring yourself to the present moment and think about every decision that you're making, you know what I mean, and think about the consequences of that decision versus just acting, you know, being completely unaware in that moment and just feeding into whatever human temptation you are having.
True. That goes into the polarity of light and dark, hot and cold, good and bad. You have good energy and bad energy.
Yeah.
Certain people walk in the room and light the room up. Certain people walk in the room and give people bad vibes.
Yeah.
You ever just meet a person and it's like something off about them?
Yeah.
That's just what comes with life. It's not a God versus devil. It's a good and bad. Some people are more leaning to this side of the scale. Some are on this side of the scale. But there's no physical proof of this devil.
Right.
Especially if you are a religious, churchy person. How is the devil able to creep into God's house and bring evil into this house? Yeah. It should be like when you play tag as a kid. Base is off limits. You can't be it on base. Once you get the base, you safe. You should be able to run to God's house and people can't come in there and Swiss cheese everybody or burn the building down. The devil shouldn't be welcome in here. But somehow the devil can go and do whatever he wants to do. Yeah,
it just seems like an excuse, you know, to act bad in certain situations and be like, oh, that was the demons, that was the devil. Like, no, it was you.
Yeah, you the devil.
Yeah, it's literally allowing you to just make excuses for yourself when really, if you're taught that you are in control of your own actions, you're in control of your own destiny, it's going to put a level of responsibility and accountability back onto you, instead of making you think that, oh, humankind is just doomed until we're all destroyed and God decides to fix this earth again. That idea makes us lack accountability for our current actions and the current actions of other humans.
Well put.
All right, so what do we believe about Armageddon? I'm gonna start by saying this. Bad things are constantly happening. So one person's best day in their entire life can be another person's worst day in their entire life. So we're all living in the same world, but really we're living in our, like, as characters of our own world, kind of. You know what I mean? So if you look at places like Gaza and things like that, look at what's going on over there, you know, bombings, everything. Like their entire world as they know it has been completely destroyed. That looks like Armageddon. That literally looks like the pictures of Armageddon that I remember seeing as Jehovah's Witness. Everything lit up, everything red, dusty, buildings falling down, people sick, starving, not being able to get food, not being able to get water, their families, you know, being unalived left and right, bodies all over the place. That's somebody's Armageddon.
Sure, that's like that in certain sides of town, just within one city. Over here, you got people in poverty, but you got people, you know, 5 minutes away, and they living in peace with nothing to worry about.
Yeah, so, huge homes, pools, beautiful gardens, you know, their very own little slice of paradise. Like, these two things are literally coexisting at the same time.
And always have, and into the fear tactics, it's always the last days.
Yeah.
There's always an event, but every generation has had a war go on, some type of epidemic. Polio used to be a big thing at one point in time. Back in the I want to say like this 50s or 60s, my grandmother had polio. Fast forward, you had the AIDS epidemic. Fast forward, you got COVID. It was always something that had everybody shook to where it's the last days. Everybody had a war. I was want to say 4th grade when the thing with Iraq was going on. It was the end of the world at the time.
Right.
Hurricanes. It's always something going on. And what I like to point out when people say things getting bad, I'm not walking around with shackles and chains on as a slave. That was the end of the world to somebody at that time because Jesus was supposed to come save them. Now we in the last days and we ain't gonna be enslaved for long because Jesus coming to save us. And they end up having to save themselves. Yeah. You know, like everybody has their own Armageddon and you realize life goes on.
Yes, and the truth is the world as they know it ends.
Yep.
You know, so like the coming of the end of the world, I don't know. I don't know if it's really going to be a thing or if it's just the end as we know it. You know, like now we're in this age of technology. We just watched,
I was gonna say that.
Yes, we just watched that movie yesterday. It was called Subservience. on Netflix. It was really good. It was like about AI like taking over, and like the robots looked like us. Okay, they look like real humans, and it was just crazy watching it, because it's like, man, like we could very much be going that way to where technology just takes over, you know? But that's why I'm like, there's just a balance in all things, and that scale needs to be balanced, because technology has done beautiful things for us, and it can do beautiful things for us, but we don't have to ruin our planet due to technology. There can be a balance. We can still feed our planet, have beautiful plants and these living things living around us, and also have technology to help, you know?
Yeah, find a balance in it.
Yes.
So next we can get into the belief of the heaven or hell.
Okay.
All right. So once you kind of look into religion and history, there's always been beliefs of the afterlife. The problem is a lot of religions take their own beliefs and push it as facts. And being comfortable with understanding nobody has a full answer. We know when you see a body in a casket, something is missing, clearly. So it's somewhere. The thing is, everybody doesn't have the answer on where it is and how to get there. And so you understand with the Bible that the whole heaven and hell is not a physical place. It's a level of consciousness. A person that is lost, has no idea what their purpose in life is. They just lost in the sauce, don't see a way out. They living in hell. Or you'll hear people that's locked up in jail say, man, this right here is hell on earth, man, this is hell. And then somebody else that found their purpose or found their way or have a clear understanding or living at a higher way of consciousness where they have peace, have found their heaven. The trick is to tell people, don't worry about none of that. Read this and you will get your reward once you're dead. Even though I can't prove to you what all happens when you're dead, you're going to get your heaven or your hell once you're dead and gone. So don't worry about this life right here.
Yeah, and I think it also comes down to this, like, either you're going to play into, like, willful ignorance, which that's not something, if I was a perfect human, I don't feel like I would want to choose that, you know? And I feel like that's kind of what Adam and Eve had going on at the beginning. Like, it was like an ignorance kind of thing. If they didn't know the knowledge of good and evil, that to me is ignorance. You don't know about it. You know what I mean? So we can either have that's the idea that like Christianity sells, even for Jehovah's Witnesses, because it's like, okay, once Armageddon comes and you get to paradise and everything, then you're gonna forget about all your family members that didn't do what was right. That's ignorance. You know, that's purposely wiping our memories clear of somebody that we loved, this soul that we loved. Like, I don't want that. I want to remember them. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just don't like that. And so it plays into my idea of like current afterlife and heaven and hell too, because like I lost my dad last year. It was difficult. It still is difficult. There's days that I am just so sad, but I would never want to forget him. You know, like I want his memory. I want to remember him regardless of whatever pain that comes with that, you know, of him not currently physically being here right now. I still want that because he meant that much to me, you know? And so, I don't know, this whole idea of what paradise is doesn't even ring to me as what it should be, because I don't want my memory wiped clean.
The whole, what they try to sell you with the whole paradise or even the heaven or earth thing is you're going to be happy. So think about this. You have the free will, for real. You have the free will of burning in hell because you had free will and chose, well, this is what I would like to do. Now you got to burn in hell. Or you can go to heaven and praise God forever and ever. You have to be in this place and you can only be one way. It's not really a free will, or like you said, paradise and have your memory wiped clean. And when you brought up the Adam and Eve thing, this is something I understood what Christianity is. You had Adam and Eve, which is only 6,000 years ago, even though we've been here long before that. Then they had 3 sons. Who did they reproduce with? And then this is another thing inside of the Bible. When Cain killed Abel, he was removed, and he was worried about somebody killing him. Who was going to kill him if it was only Adam and Eve and 3 sons? This is where things, and the answer you get is, oh, well, that part wasn't in the Bible. Well, how are you going to put something in here that ain't there? Things like that just stop making sense, and you realize, you know what? This right here is just a man-made, accept this and roll with it stuff. And there's so much other knowledge out here that you don't even have to accept, but you can at least look at it and go, I like that. Yeah. Let me add this to my pot.
Yes.
And that's something I did even as a Jehovah's Witness. It was things in Islam that I'm like, I'll never be a Muslim, but that's interesting to know about our history. Let me put that over here for later. And I start realizing in Jehovah's Witness, wait a minute, this doesn't line up with that, but this right here makes sense and this doesn't. So wait a minute, I'm seeing two sides that don't make complete sense.
Yeah. I
don't have to follow all this stuff.
No, yes. And that's another thought that a lot of people has is like, you have to choose one. Like I remember I was working with somebody and he considered himself to be an atheist Buddhist, an atheist Buddhist or something like that, because he was explaining it like Buddhism is a philosophy. It's not necessarily a religion. Some people practice it as a religion, but it's a philosophy. And that made me feel like you don't have to choose one. But there's other people who'll be like, you need to pick one. Says who? Why? Why do I have to pick one? Why can't I decide what makes sense for me, you know? And as long as you're living your life a beautiful way that you are happy with, what's the problem? And I think that you can very much create your own heaven on earth, you know? Like my idea of what heaven is literally having a very nice garden out in some acres, being able to be around my family all the time, you know, like just have a beautiful life, spend time outside. That is my idea of heaven.
And everybody should do what works for them.
Right. I don't need to be talking to tigers and hanging out with the tigers and deers. I don't need all that.
Yeah, and if that's what you want to do that. But like you were saying, you have the freedom to pick a religion. And that's the thing about the control over humans is you have to belong to this.
Yeah.
Just like I don't have a favorite team. It's easy for a person to wrap their head around, who your team? Oh, I ain't got one. Oh, okay. What's your religion? I ain't got one. What you mean you ain't got one? It's the same concept. I don't have to belong to a group.
Right.
It's freedom.
It's plain and simple, just like that. And I think we can also touch on that afterlife, like how we view afterlife. Because, you know, Jehovah's Witnesses just view them as being, when you die, you are dust. That's it. You're dead. And I feel like we kind of touched on this with the soul and everything. But I believe it just changes realms, like it changes playing fields. And I think everybody kind of has a story about like losing a loved one, because when I talk about this, it like sparks conversation, you know, like people having dreams of their dead loved ones and it feeling so real, and them sending them a message like through there. Is our subconscious making it up, or is your loved one really trying to reach out, you know? Yeah. And my belief is that it's your loved one really trying to reach out, because it set like the dreams, it'll be them saying it exactly how they are, you know? Yeah. And people will be like, oh, that's the demons. I'm like, I guess, but I mean, tell me something good.
That's how they scare you from even reaching out to learn something like that. And you got to think this. A soul does not rest. You can't put a soul to sleep. Your soul, when your body is resting, where's your soul going? Yeah. Is it sitting there right there with you like, all right, what we finna do? Yeah. No, the soul is going to reach, and think the closest thing to death is what? Sleep. You fell asleep in death. Yep. So when you are going to sleep, that opens up those pathways to the afterlife, which is why, like me, for example, on a weekly basis, I have dreams of people that passed away. Yeah. And this is the thing that connects it, because people can go, oh, that's just made up. It started before I even woke up. I was still a Jehovah's Witness, and we had people in our street that we grew up with. We were all close. And one of our friends' dad, Mr. Joe, had passed away in 2015. So years later, I had a dream about Mr. Joe, and we were on his back deck that they had built when he was still alive, and he just came out the house, and we talked for a quick second, and he was like, well, I got more things to do, and he walked off the deck. It was such a simple dream. So the next day, I hit my friend Mickey, his son, and I'm like, man, I had a dream about your dad, and we was just talking on the deck, and he walked off, and he's like, you know, I got things to do, and Mickey was like, bruh, because Mickey does handyman work, he does paint, and he works on houses. He said, I'm going to our old house today to work on the deck that Dad did, because it's time to get repainted. And I've been struggling with just, you know, the sentimental thing of Dad did this and I'm going to work on it. And he was like, bro, I needed that. So that right there could have been a fluke. But it was like, I want to say a year later, I had another dream about Mr. Joe. And he was just smiling, looking at Mickey, saying he was proud of him. And I told Mickey that when I woke up the next day. And he was like, man, I have been thinking about my dad, man. I needed to hear that. And this is something that happens all the time, even with Pierce. It
happens with you
all the time. Like I have dreams about your dad, and we had a conversation, and it was so random. and he just looked sad. Usually he was happy in the dreams, but this one he was sad. And I'm like, bro, you okay? He was like, man, I lived a pretty good life, except for crack. And I had no idea what is he talking about? So fast forward, because the dream went left and right all over the place. I woke up, I checked my TikTok, and on your For You is random.
Yeah.
It was a lady saying how crack, how it affects families, like especially if you had a parent on it and you feel like the orphan, like you feel like somebody in the family that's looked down on compared to everybody else because you come from this broken home. Yeah. Fast forward talking to your mom was like, parents always say he felt like an orphan. So that, just all those things connected all in one, and you can call it demons, you can call it whatever you want, but that just shows the power of the afterlife and going to sleep.
I'm telling you, and it's even more than that. Our bodies are aware of so much, because the week before my dad died, I was telling him about this. Like, I had this pain in my chest, and I thought something was wrong with my heart. Like, seriously. At work, I felt like I couldn't take a deep breath. Like, it felt like there was a rubber band just like wrapped around my chest. And my dad died of a heart attack. Okay, they found other things too, but it was a heart attack that is what made him die. And after I found out he was dead, I never got that feeling again. But it was the whole week leading up to my dad's death that I felt that way. So your body is aware of so much before you even are. And even prior to that, like 8 months before my dad died, his little brother died too. And remember that morning, babe? The morning that my uncle got sent off to the hospital, I had a dream that night that my dad got shot by a car. Like, he was near a car and he got shot multiple times. And I told you about the dream whenever we woke up, remember?
Yep.
And we go to the gym. We're at the gym. After we're about to leave, my dad calls me. He's crying. And he says, your uncle got life-flighted to this hospital. He got shot multiple times. And he got shot by a car.
Yeah, like make that make sense.
Yeah, like some things you just can't make sense of. Even the dreams that I've had afterward, they're so vivid. You know what I mean? So vivid. I have so many stories, but we're not going to tell all of them.
Yeah.
You know? But anyway, so there's all these things that just don't make sense. And like we say all the time, energy cannot be created nor destroyed. If you think of an inanimate object, this piece of paper right here, okay? It's dead. It's lifeless, right? It's soulless. But if we put a microscope on it, we're going to see little atoms bouncing around all over the place. Solids have this slowest atoms, so they bounce around really slow. But if you look at gas or something, like theirs bounces around really fast. So everything has life in it. Like
everything.
Yeah.
Everything is all connected.
Yeah, that's kind of our views on those kind of things.
Yeah, we'll do a follow-up video on some more topics. And the thing is, everything we say, just look it up. We're not saying just take our word for it. Don't be afraid to look things up for yourself. And just because you study or read something, don't mean you have to accept it. You can go, okay, that's interesting. Because I read things and I'm like, I don't know about that. Let me look more into it. Or that's interesting for you.
Yeah. Or
for this person. But you don't have to accept it. Just put things on the timeline. That's all we say.
And just do your own research. You don't have to believe what we say. You know what I mean? You don't have to believe what the next person says. Like, you have a mind of your own. You can do it yourself.
Yep,
too.
use it. Yep. So let us know in the comments, because we have a lot of people that's into spirituality and African spirituality and some Christians, a little bit of everything. Let us know y'all beliefs and hit us on our Instagram at Awaken Truths IG. We got our TikTok. That's at Awaken Truths LLC.
We have our healing journals. There is some beautiful gems in those.
True.
We've got the normal version and the Pimo edition. That's going to be down in the description box. And catch us in the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will catch you on the next one.